If you're not a courageous leader, you're not a leader at all. You have a title, but you're not truly a leader. Courage is choosing principle over comfort. Courage is choosing truth over approval. Man, do we need leaders like that today. Courageous leadership is acting with conviction despite fear, pushing through resistance no matter how much, and vision in the face of uncertainty no matter how deep. And I always like to go to the battlefield. Right? If I'm leading a regiment and every time there's an explosion, I'm like, like, how you think my troops gonna feel? What's the equivalent? Every time the marketplace changes, I'm like, I don't know what we gonna do. Every time there's a drop or every time there's a behavior change, I'm like, I don't know what's happening. You think people have confidence in me and my leadership? When you display courageous leadership in your life, on the other side, there is a fulfillment that you can't even begin to imagine.
Let's lay your goals, let your greatness flow with inspirational perspective.
I always say that the most obstinate, the most difficult person I've ever led is me. Always. I'm the first one to not do what I say. And I think almost all of us can relate to that in some capacity. I'm going to do this, and then you don't. And so how do I lead myself? And I believe that this series not only supports us in how we lead ourselves, but it supports us in how we lead others. And so I want to kick it off with why leadership, why you want to pay attention to this series, why you want to listen to the series. And then I'll do a quick review of where we've been, and then jump into the impact and the power of courageous leadership. So, leadership, especially when you think about it today, like how critical just really good leadership is and the impact that a leader can have on everyone around them. Anybody that, for whatever reason, is impacted by how they show up, what they do, there's a real big impact. All right, let's start here. I did some research on the impact of leadership, and I want to first kind of walk you through my thinking and why I did the research in the first place. So I wanted to understand the correlation between effective leadership and business revenue. All right. And when I'm saying this, I want you to think about yourself, because you are the CEO of your life. So I'm not just talking to the CEOs of Fortune 500 organizations, to CEOs of mid-cap businesses that are doing between $10 and $100 million a year. I'm talking to you too, because you are the CEO of your life, and whatever your numbers are directly correlated to your personal leadership, like how you are leading this life. That term, how are you leading life, not just living, but how are you leading and living your life, is intentional, because you are making leadership decisions for yourself every day. And you have to pay for those decisions, good or bad, on a very personal level. So I wanted to understand the correlation between effective leadership and business revenue. Why does that matter? Because I believe everybody listening to me, if they're mentally healthy, cares about their personal revenue. That's why I put the caveat, if they're mentally healthy, because some folks will be like, I don't care about money. Money doesn't mean nothing to me. And the more they go on, the more you're like, are you well? Are you okay? Right? So leadership matters. I say this often. I know it triggers folks, but wherever you are right now, whatever your surroundings look like, whatever your environment, you are directly responsible for that. Like, you are leading your life. You're leading your household. You're leading in every capacity of your life. So I wanted to understand this correlation. Like, what's the correlation between effective leadership and business revenue? And do great leaders generate more revenue and market share than mediocre or poor leaders? There are 4 steps to transformation. I call this the 4-step coaching cycle. There are 4 steps to personal transformation. The very first is awareness. I have to be aware of where I am. Most people are not aware of where they are in ways that, because I do this work, shock me. I've had individuals who were overweight. That's one good example. Were overweight, and you would think that they knew it. And then something happens. I can remember once being in Ghana with a particular person, and we were doing a little small hike in Cocoon National Park, and they were walking. They're like, I don't understand why I'm having so many problems. And like, the rest of us could look at them and go, we thought you would. And they were like, I used to be able to do this no problem. How long ago? But it just didn't register. And then this individual had like a mini breakdown because they were like, I'm overweight, I'm obese. It's like it all hit them at once, right? They became aware. This is why awareness is important, because many times everybody else sees something that you don't see. So first, I want you to really think about where you are on the leadership scale. 1 to 10. Where are you? And I want you to know that most people have the tendency to put themselves toward the 8 to 10. You know, like if 1 is you are a poor leader, your leadership has all types of fallout. That's 1. 10, you are an effective leader. Your leadership reflects what I'm about to share in terms of like what great and effective leadership does, right? But you're a 10 and you can see the results in your life, in your business, in your finances, everything. In your relationships also, very, very important. Okay. So where are you? So kind of, take a minute, rank yourself. Be as honest with yourself as you can. This is not something you have to put in the Facebook comments. This is not something you have to put in the YouTube comments. This is very personal. Where am I as a leader? You may say, well, Linal, I don't have a leadership title. Again, you're leading yourself. How effectively are you leading yourself? And that's important because, again, all transformation starts with awareness. The second part of that cycle is choice, access to new choices. And when you become aware of where you are, all of a sudden you have access to new choices. Let's go back to the individual in Ghana. Oh, my goodness, I'm actually overweight. I'm obese. I'm out of shape. Well, now there's access to a choice that wasn't there before. Do I want to get in shape? Do I want to lose weight? All those things. And by the way, they were overwhelmed with all those choices. Now, here's the thing about human beings. And we talked about this last week. Human beings don't like change. Human beings, there's a whole lot that we're not intuitively good at. And one of them is new behaviors. We have habits. We have hardwired habits. And so as a result, we don't always do what we know to do. And this is why, as a leader, you need a very powerful why. I'm going to go into that in a minute when I do a quick refresh on what we talked about. But you need a powerful why. Like, what intention do you have that will take you to the next level? Okay? And then that is what leads to transformation, because that powerful why leads to purposeful action. That purposeful action begins to create a difference in your life. And then that leads to transformation. And then just think about wash, rinse, repeat. Okay, where am I now? New awareness, new choices. Why would I make this change? Transformation. Research consistently demonstrates a strong correlation between effective leadership. And by the way, next week we're going to get into the 6 characteristics of effective leadership. But a strong correlation between effective leadership and increased business revenue, profitability, and market share. Organizations led by great leaders outperform those with mediocre or poor leaders in measurable financial outcomes. So this is measurable. So here's the other thing I want you to do. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a leader, I want you to right now, think about your current revenue. And I want you to think about your current profitability. I also want you to think about your current market share. Who are some of the, what does your market consist of? Yesterday I took my son to a birthday party. I was talking to one of the fathers, and he was like, who are some of your biggest clients? And as I started to share, I think he was kind of like, okay. Right. And not to brag, but the more effective I lead my organization, the more impact my organization is going to have, the more market share my organization is going to have. Now, I want to be very clear about something. There are portions of this that come down to knowledge. But if I'm a leader, then I'm chasing that knowledge every day, which means if I'm chasing knowledge every day, whatever knowledge that's currently evading me around market share, I'll gain. I'll learn it. The last 2 years, I've been a part of a development opportunity to gain more market share, to gain more knowledge so I can gain more market share, right? That's what great leaders do. Great leaders continue learning. Why do they continue learning? Lesson 6 from my upcoming book, Nature's Leadership Code, says that stagnation equals extinction, right? And so I have to keep learning if I'm a leader, because I do not want to become extinct. I don't want my company to become extinct. I don't want the people I'm paying to not be able to get paid. You ever wonder why some leaders can't make payroll? Stagnation equals extinction, right? So organizations led by great leaders outperform those with mediocre or poor leaders in measurable financial outcomes. Here are the core findings. There are multiple case studies that show extraordinary leaders can more than double the profits compared to average or poor leaders. Think about this, more than double the profits. So if I become a 10 in leadership, an extraordinary leader, that means that the company that you're currently running, where you're like, oh, there's no more hope, this market's dead. If an extraordinary leader stepped into that company, they could double the profit. And by the way, this has been done. So I'm not just making stuff up. I'm about to give you hardcore numbers around this has been done. There are leaders who have been leading companies where we've exhausted all our possibilities. There's nothing else to do. The board fires that CEO, brings in another CEO who's an extraordinary leader. They see opportunity everywhere. They double profits. So was it the product or was it the leader? Y'all follow? Okay. So there's here's an example. Zinger Folkman did some research and they analyzed bank branches. This is a really good one, right? So they analyzed bank branches because I can already hear a branch manager telling their district manager, well, it's the neighborhood you gave me, right? It's the product that you gave me, which is why our revenue looks like this at this branch. But here's what the research says, because the research didn't break it down and say, oh, these people were in great areas. They talked about the leaders. They talked about the leaders of the branches, not the areas. All right. So in Folkman's research, they analyzed branch managers of Fortune 500 financial firms. And they found that branches led by the top 10% of leaders, and they measured this. And next week, we're going to talk about the measurements of effective leadership. But they measured this, right? The top 10% generated nearly $4.5 million in net gains on average, while those in the bottom 10% had $1.2 million losses on average. You see the difference? So an effective leader of a bank branch, $4.5 million in gains on average. And poor leaders, $1.2 million in losses on average. Again, if you are struggling in your business, it is sometimes we're like, oh, the economy, the industry, the Trump administration, we start pointing at things. If you are struggling in your industry, it's you, because somebody is not. Somebody is eating. It's you. Again, this comes with love, but the first step to transformation is awareness. And companies with effective leaders experience up to 9% higher revenue growth than those with poor leadership, as found in relevant industry studies. So then let's talk about market share and competitive advantage, right? Because then if I'm an effective leader, then how does that translate to market share? How does that translate to how I compete in the marketplace? And what was found in the research was market leaders typically command more market share, more pricing power. I want to be very clear about this. I've had conversations with individuals like they want one-on-one coaching, right? And my price is set. My price is set. Unless there's something special, like just recently, there's a CEO that reached out to me. It's like, hey, can you coach my spouse? That CEO and I have a business reel. I'm like, I got you, right? In that case, I'm not playing with my pricing power. I got you. But outside of that, I'm like, this is what it is. You can leave it. You can take it or leave it. Okay. So you got pricing power and you have better margins than other folks, translating to an ability for you to reinvest and strengthen your market share. And strengthen your market position. So effective leaders they have more of an advantage because they can actually drive higher market share, better pricing power. And I'm not just talking about, here's pricing power. I want to be very clear about this. Pricing power is not charging somebody a high rate and they only come to you one time. If you charge premium rates and you only get, like, a person only deal with you once or twice, there's something wrong with your product. It's not because they can't afford it. There's something wrong with the product. A lot of times we're like, oh, they can't afford it. Oh, they don't want to buy from me. We'll make things up, right? If you're charging premium rates and that person paid it once or twice and then they were like, no, thank you. There's something wrong with your service. There's something wrong with your leadership. And I'm like, this is all with love. So we can get better. But there's something wrong with your service. There's something wrong with your leadership. So, because if you're charging premium prices for a premium product, people will continue to pay. Even if they don't have the money, case in point, just go to any luxury brand. Any luxury. Man, I can remember sitting in a luxury automobile dealership, and there was a young lady who obviously didn't have the money. She was making phone calls to friends and family for her down payment. The interest rate was crazy. I was ear hustling. I'm like, what is happening right now? Right? But she was doing everything she could to purchase that premium product without the money. So folks will buy premium products who don't have money. Okay. So what are some examples? Apple. Not everybody can afford that phone, but they make it work. Right? It's a premium product. And then every year they come out, it don't change that much, right? But because it's a premium product against its competitors, and it's very clear, the ability to integrate across platforms, all those different things, like Steve Jobs set it up so well, even after his death, it's still a premium product. That's called leadership legacy, by the way, right? And people who can't afford it will still buy it over and over and over and over again, me included. All right. Tesla. You cannot like Elon. You can, oh my goodness, Doge, all this stuff, right? You cannot like him. At the end of the day, he's a brilliant CEO. Just is. Even when they think this guy is making mistakes, even when he does something crazy and it drops the share price. I think he went on Joe Rogan and smoked weed. You say, well, that's irresponsible. And the shares dropped a little bit. Guess what I did? I bought them because they're going to go right back up. Thanks for going on sale, right? And they did. They went right back up. General Electric. General Electric under Jack Welch. Man, we all know that name. Even folks who aren't in business know that name. That's leadership legacy. So CEOs who illustrate incredible leadership impact on not only company growth, but industry standards are leaders who experience an uptick in market share and competitive advantage. If you say right now, electric vehicle, what do you think? And there's plenty of them out there, right? So what's some supporting evidence? When you look at leadership quality, right? And by the way, my sources are the Zinger-Folkman study, the DDI study, and Next Up Leadership, some work they did on Jack Welch, at GE. On average, the bottom 10% of your leaders are the reason you're losing money. If you're a company, you're losing money on them, right? The bottom 10%. Jack Welch realized this, which is why he fired the bottom 10% every year. People were like, that's insane. And he was off with their heads, right? Bye, gone. And people thought that was an insane model. But we still talk about this man to this day. Then you have your middle 80%, right? And they're basically generating and meeting expectations for the most part. Okay, they're meeting the expectation. They're not great leaders. They're okay leaders. And they're meeting the expectation of the business. So what supports a business and going to the next level? The top 10% of their leaders. They're those effective leaders where you see the increase in revenue, the increase in market share, like they're making decisions that are supporting the company and gaining massive growth. Overall, when it comes to an effective leader, you're looking at if you have an effective leader and you put them into a position, you're looking at, in terms of what they have responsibility for, 10% higher revenue. If you're a leader, especially if you're an executive leader listening right now, like you're a C-suite leader, you need to be thinking about like every branch within your responsibility that generates revenue and asking yourself, are there effective leaders leading those branches? Not friends, not folks you have a good relationship with, right? Because that's how we typically choose based on last week's conversation. But effective leaders, measurable, like you've put them through assessments, like these are the best leaders. The leaders leading my customer service, the absolute best leader, right? The leader running my marketing, the absolute best leader. Not a friend, but the absolute best leader. Why? Because you experience 10% higher revenue growth. This is research, right? Visionary leaders. Listen to this. Effective visionary leaders. So not just an effective leader, but a leader that has a vision for growth. When you look at what these leaders have done in the marketplace, and this is on record, you can see a $4,000, and this is in the Fortune 500, right? This is the only place I couldn't measure small businesses, all that. But in the Fortune 500, effective visionary leaders, talking about folks like Steve Jobs, Jack Welch, they delivered a 4,000% increase in stock price. That's mind-blowing. That's mind-blowing. On average, they're able to manipulate the stock price to the excess of 4,000+% because they are effective and they have a vision. I guess that's why there's so few of them. Man. Okay. So what are the mechanisms behind this result? Effective leaders, I'm going to give away some of the competencies here. Okay. Effective leaders, they create and communicate a clear vision. They are dogmatic about strategic alignment, and they know how to foster high levels of employee engagement. Their leadership directly drives productivity, and they are obsessed with customer retention. They're obsessed with the customer. Poor leadership, conversely, is associated with losses, high employee turnover, and decreased customer satisfaction. Those are three things that if you just looked at those three things for every leader in your organization, then you know who to let go. A lot of folks are going through layoffs. If you don't want to cut muscle, I would just go through every leader and say, okay, what's their employee turnover? If they have direct impact on financials, do they have any losses, any financial losses whatsoever? Like the district they're leading, is the district making money? Like all those things, right? And what's the customer satisfaction rate? And if it's not good, that's who to let go. We can't lose. We're already losing, so we let them go. We can't lose. If a leader called me and said, "Hey man, we gotta cut," you already know what I'm saying. Okay, these are the places you want to look. Pull out your reports. Well, my leaders gave me some names. Don't look at those names. Look at the numbers. Okay. So, here's what the research taught me. There's a connection between effective leadership and business revenue. It's undeniable. It's not only intuitive, but it is repeatedly validated by empirical studies. So, okay, we figured that. I figured it before I did the research, but then I went and found what are the numbers? What are the real world examples? I gave you some. Great leaders consistently generate more revenue and market share for their organizations than mediocre and poor leaders. In fact, poor leaders typically are losing. It's that simple. So then again, I want you to look at that number you gave yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Where are you? And I want you to correlate that to, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business person, what is your P&L? What does your profit loss statement look like? And if you're losing, then you have to adjust your number if you put it above a 5. You have to. The numbers don't say that you're even in the middle. If you're losing, that's a leadership issue. That's a leadership issue. And so we have to examine how you're leading. If you're winning, then that's a leadership consequence. And now it's like, okay, I'm a 6, I'm a 7. How do I get to an 8? How do I get to a 9? And that's the conversation that I want to have today. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the importance of having a powerful leadership intention, leadership commitment, guiding principles, and very clear core values, right? Why would you do that work? Why would you do that work? Because as a leader, that's the work you're doing on you. When you look inside at this model, this whole model is about you as a leader. And when you have those things, that is the experience that people have. The more clear I am on my leadership commitment, my leadership intention, my guiding principles, and my core values, that's my what. That is what people experience when they work for me, when they are under my leadership. All right? My guiding principles are how I take action. I take action within the guardrails of those guiding principles. Why is that important? Because then I take action in a consistent way. My team, the people that I lead, when I do things, it doesn't surprise them. They're like, even if they don't like it, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's how he leads. Oh, man, we feel the pressure right now. He's pushing us, but we understand his guiding principles. It's consistent. He was that way last year. He's that way this year. He's going to be that way in 2026. Okay, he's consistent. Why is consistency important in leadership? Because you don't want your people guessing. If they have to guess about who you're going to be, you're losing engagement, you're losing in productivity. When they know who you're going to be, even if they don't like it, right? Steve Jobs, like, folks didn't like him. They loved him, though. Interesting, isn't it? But some of the people that work for him are like, he's not that likable. But he was consistent. He had guiding principles, and they were engaged, and they were productive as a result of it. As a leader, one of the things you should ask yourself is, do you have a need to be liked? Do you have a need to be liked? One of the characteristics of effective leadership is accountability. And when you're holding someone accountable, you're not always likable. But guess what? Human beings, whether they like it or not, whether they admit it or not, love accountability. Think about a child. If you allow a child to continue on and you don't discipline them, they question your love. They question their value. When you discipline them and hold them in line, they know you care. It's no different than an adult that works for you. I hate to say it. All right. And so in this intentional leadership framework, guiding principles supports you in taking consistent action in how you do things, how I do things. I can be stern with my team, but they know I'll never curse them out, right? Certain guy, I'm going to respect you. Like, they know that even if it's a difficult conversation, you're not going to come out feeling disrespected. And so you can have a one-on-one that's, got some friction in it, and stay in it, stay engaged, stay clear on what's being said, because there's no fear of disrespect. All right, how I lead. And then leadership legacy is all about where we're going. Remember what I said about visionary leaders? Effective visionary leaders, the ones that we've researched, created 4,000% plus in share prices. So when I'm very clear on my leadership legacy, I'm very clear on where I intend to go. You think Jack Welch, when he was laying off the bottom 10% of leaders at GE, was concerned about being liked? Or was he focused on a vision? I'm taking this company somewhere. And all them folks don't like me. The people in the middle are like, wow, he laid off my friend. They probably don't like me. The top leaders, the top 10%, probably feel like, man, I'm working so hard to maintain this. This is crazy. This man he's crazy. But I've had the opportunity to work with, hang out with individuals who work for Jack Welch directly, and they will all say, man, I admire him. That man he's something. He was something. Nothing but good things to say about him, because he was clear on his vision. This is where we're going. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because this is where we're going. All right. That's the intentional leadership framework. Hey, if you're enjoying what you're watching right now, do me a quick favor. I want you to hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss when we drop new content. Seriously, it means the world that you're here. Thanks for watching, and let's get back to it. I want to talk about the courage that it takes to close the gap and live your values as a leader. Like, to live aligned with your core values every day takes a great deal of courage. And there's a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt that I want to open this up with. Courage is more exhilarating than fear. And in the long run, it is easier. Listen to this, right? Courage is more exhilarating than fear. And in the long run, it's easier. We do not have to become heroes overnight. Just one step at a time, meeting each obstacle, each thing as it comes up. That's Eleanor Roosevelt. So another way for us to think about courage is my ability to meet each obstacle individually as they come up with consistency around my leadership intent, my leadership commitment, my guiding principles, and my core values. And I can tell you from experience, it takes courage. you got to be a little crazy. But you know what? I wouldn't say that. Let me rewind that. You got to have a great deal of faith. And let me say this first and foremost. Like, part of my leadership courage is anchored in my belief in God. My belief that God is my source. I can remember being in corporate America and making some decisions that I knew my CEO didn't agree with, that I knew, and it was like, but this is the right thing to do. And I knew that God was my source. If you're a corporate leader right now, because a lot of people, well, Linal, it sounds good for entrepreneurs, but you don't understand my senior leaders. You don't understand my CEO. What I would say to you is, you have a leader that outranks them. And your obligation is to be in alignment and in integrity with the highest leader of them all. That's why I lead according to my core values, no matter what. That's why, even in those situations where it felt unfavorable, I'm like, this is what we're going to do. And my phone would ring. Harris, what are you doing? Well, this was the right thing to do. Come to my office right now. I would sit there, take the grilling, I'm like, oh, man, I made it out without getting fired. Why? Because I'm covered. You do realize they can't let you go unless the man upstairs gives them the ability to let you go. And then if they do let you go, that means the man upstairs got you back. That means he's got you back. He's already got something better for you. Another door is opening where you can lead in the way that he intends for you to lead. All right? So that's for my corporate leaders who are like, man, it sounds good. I'm telling you, it is good. All right? All right. So what is courage? Courage is choosing principle over comfort. Courage is choosing truth over approval. Man, do we need leaders like that today? Man, courageous leadership is acting with conviction despite fear, pushing through resistance no matter how much, and vision in the face of uncertainty no matter how deep. That's courageous leadership. Courageous leadership. One of the reasons I created the leadership tour of Uganda is because I know leaders need to exercise their courage. Like, it's a muscle. I know leaders need to exercise their courage. I'm like, what better way to build courage than to do something you're afraid of? People are afraid of gorillas. People are afraid of animals overall. They don't understand them, right? Let's go out there. Let's be on the ground with some rhinos. I'm like, what? I remember the last trip, we were on a rhino trek. We pull up. I say, all right. The ranger says, all right, let's get out. They're like, we getting out? We're getting out. What? And then there's trust in the leadership of the ranger at that point, right? We getting out? But then when we got back in, I said, how was that? That was mind-blowing. It was amazing. When you display courageous leadership in your life, on the other side, there is a fulfillment that you can't even begin to imagine. When was the last time you made a decision that scared you as a leader, but you knew it was the right thing to do? I just want you to think about that. Like, when was the last time you made a decision that scared you as a leader, but you did it because you knew this is the right thing to do? It's scary, but it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for me to do. When was the last time? One of the reasons, if you're thinking about this and you can't think of one, because it's very easy to go with the flow nowadays. And if you can't think of one of the reasons that happens is because we succumb to the enemies of courage. What are the enemies of courage? Fear, failure. What if I make this bold decision and fail? You can even put what ifs at the top of the list. What if, right? But fear of failure, fear of rejection, right? If you're in the corporate arena, rejection is fear of job loss. And number 3, fear of change. These are the enemies of courage. It takes courage to be an inclusive leader. Why aren't humans naturally inclusive? Because we hate change. We don't like things that aren't similar, right? So in order for me to be inclusive, it requires courage. The enemy of courage is change. So when it comes to courage, if I'm a human being and we know that psychologically humans don't like change, we know that humans fear uncertainty, we know that humans struggle to see similarities in people who look different, we know that as human beings we do everything we can to avoid comfort, then really courage is going against the grain of everything I feel naturally. Everything I feel naturally, I'm going to go against the grain of that. Walt Disney said courage is the main quality of leadership. I'm almost tempted to say that if you're not a courageous leader, you're not a leader at all. You have a title, but you're not truly a leader. When leaders choose safety, they lose trust, there's no innovation, and there's no growth. I want you to really understand this. When leaders choose safety, they lose, like people don't trust them. And I always like to go to the battlefield, right? If I'm leading a regiment and every time there's an explosion, I'm like, like how you think my troops gonna feel? Every time, bullets fly over our head, how do you think the people I lead gonna feel? What's the equivalent? Every time the marketplace changes, I'm like, I don't know what we gonna do. Every time we come up against some type of, business challenge, I seem disoriented. Every time there's a drop or every time there's a behavior change, I'm like, I don't know what's happening. You think people have confidence in me and my leadership? Do they really want to follow me? Courage in leaders inspires courage in the team. Think about the regiment commander. The explosion goes off, the bullets are whizzing, and they just stand there stone cold. You all know what we need to do next, right? We're going to take the hill, right? And people are listening to him. A lot of times they're probably thinking this guy is nuts. We're going to take the hill. Some of you are going to make the hill with me. Some of you won't. Either way, we're going to take the hill. Let's go on my count. You think folks are like, even if they're afraid, the likelihood of hesitation is low, right? It's like, man, I'm behind this brother. I admire his courage. It's no different in the marketplace. Courage in leaders inspire courage in teams. The more courageous you are, the more engaged your team will be. Inclusion requires courage, especially today. Courage is required to face biases. This is how my knee-jerk reaction to that, but I'm going to push anyway. Courage is required to build bridges. Man, this is a difficult person. We don't get along. I don't see any similarities in us, but I need to build a bridge so we can make this happen. Effective leadership. I would say this. When you think about the family today, when you think about the family and the attacks that are taking place on the family, it requires a different level of courage for those of us that lead in the home. Courage with our children? No, you can't do that. No, you can't watch that. No. They may be disgruntled. They may be upset. That's okay. Because what I want to leave behind is a legacy. One day you'll say, man, my dad told me this and I'm telling you now, right? Legacy. Families need courageous leadership like never before. How do I address conflicts in the home with love? Address conflicts in the home with consistency, right? My wife might not like it, but it seems familiar right? It ain't like, nah, man, we ain't doing that. There's a quote by W.H. Murray. He was a mountaineer. He climbed mountains. And he wrote the story of Everest. And in the story of Everest, he put this quote. And let me pull it up real quick. He put this quote. He said, until one is committed, there is hesitancy. The chance to draw back or the chance to go back, right? You're climbing a mountain, starts to get difficult. You can still see the base camp, right? By the way, to me, Everest is crazy. It's like, folks be like, Linal, you do all kinds of things. Will you ever climb Mount Everest? I'm like, nah, I'm good. I feel close to God already. I don't have to go to the summit. I'm good on that, right? That's not a commitment of mine. But I admire this brother because, W.H. Murray, he was committed to getting to the top. And he said, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back. Listen to this. Always ineffectiveness. Always ineffectiveness. Look at your leadership. Is there hesitancy? Do you make decisions and then flip them? That leads to ineffectiveness. Then he goes on to say, let me read it from the beginning. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. If that's not true, I don't know what to, man. I've seen this happen in my life. And unless you've been truly committed to something, that quote doesn't resonate. Like, committed through fire. I'm holding this position through the fire. And that's when you see providence move. I don't know how that happened, but it did. Because I was committed. I was committed. There is something, you can go back to the universal laws. There is something innate inside of us. When as leaders we commit to something, it begins to move mountains. How committed are you? How committed are you as a leader? It is that commitment that takes your courage to another level. So what we know is that courage turns clarity into action. Courage turns clarity into action. There's a quote by Ernest Hemingway. He says, courage is grace under pressure. Grace under pressure. And here's the thing I want you to know about courage. Courage is not a one-time act. It's a discipline. It's a discipline. It's driven because you are so clear on the vision. You're so clear on where you're going that you just forge ahead. Again, remember, discipline, vision equals discipline, right? So I see it. And so no matter what's happening around me, this is the course we're charting. I'm committed. I'm committed. I'm committed. I'm disciplined because I can see it. I see where we're going. Courageous leadership model. And this is a framework that we actually teach in corporate America. We've taught this to leaders. Now, in the framework, the very first thing that you see is self-awareness. The best leaders are self-aware. Again, all you got to do is go look at your P&L to know if you're aware or not. I don't have to have long conversations. I'm like, hey, man, show me your numbers. Show me your numbers. I can tell you where you are. Just show me your numbers. So self-awareness is the first part of this framework. And self-awareness is understanding things like, why do I avoid this team member? Why don't I like this leader? Like, I know the answers to all those things because I'm self-aware. Who do I really rely on? Who's my go-to person? What behaviors of mine do I justify as a leader? Self-awareness. Self-awareness expands our behavioral consciousness and gives us access to new choices as leaders. As a leader, don't you want access to every path so you can evaluate it? The only way you get access to every path is high levels of self-awareness. Now, listen to this. Curious listening expands your awareness, right? I can tell you this morning that as I'm covering this is not a popular topic. Courageous leadership. If you're not already committed to being a powerful leader, then to hear someone like me challenge you directly, folks will be like, I ain't wake up this morning for this, right? I'm good on that. But a person who is committed to leadership also has a propensity for curious listening, right? Courageous leadership isn't about constantly talking. It's about curious listening. So what is my team telling me? What are the people who are performing tasks, what's on their minds? Because as I listen, it expands my awareness. It expands my awareness as a leader. As it expands my awareness, not only is it supporting me, but my team feels valuable. You know, whenever I call up my leader, he or she listens. That makes me feel valuable. The work I'm doing must mean something. Do you think that drives more engagement, more productivity, or less engagement and less productivity? You tell me. I think that's intuitive. When I'm a curious listener as a leader, it reduces attrition. Attrition is people leaving the organization. You know, another way to identify effective leaders is just look at their attrition levels. People don't leave companies, leave jobs, they leave leaders, right? Just look at their attrition levels. Oh, you can't keep folks? Oh, well. Well, I don't know what's wrong with them. I'm a phenomenal leader. That's not what the numbers say. You may lack awareness. So curious listening. My curious listening actually maximizes my leadership commitment. It maximizes my leadership commitment because I can see, in terms of me listening to my team, listening to the people around me, what aligns with who I intend to be and what doesn't. Curious listening means that any member of my team can give me feedback. Any member of my team can give me feedback. Why is that important? Because as a leader, I can make a commitment and forget that I'm not following up with you. Oh, man. Hey, Linal, you promised X, Y, and Z. You're right. I'm so sorry. Let's handle that. Right? But if I'm not a listener, that's never coming to me. You know what they'll do? Bye-bye. I'll just leave. And leadership commitment connected to new levels of awareness give me more leadership agility. Right? Now I'm an aware leader. I know, with this individual, I should handle it this way. With this one, I'm agile. I'm more effective, which means that equates to overall growth around anything that I touch. As a leader, on a scale of 1 to 10, how safe do the people you lead feel? Even in your family, How safe does your spouse feel? Can they just come to you and talk about anything? Or do you shut it down because you lack curious listening? You already know. You defend yourself. You already got a response. Well, no, the reason I did that was, it's like, or do you just, okay, listen. Curious listening. What about your children? When I was coming up, wasn't much curious. You know what I think about that? I don't care what you think about that, boy. Right? But see, here's what happened. That wasn't effective leadership. I love my parents. They did so many, but it wasn't effective. What it did is it drove a wedge between me and them. By 17, I left the home. There was attrition. I'm out of there. As soon as I could get out, man, I was out. I make enough money to leave. I'm not even 18 yet. I'm out. Because there was just no curious listening. We go back to Eleanor Roosevelt's quote, courage develops step by step. Step by step. I gain more courage. And I want you to think about it in this term. What's one courageous step that you can take this week in your leadership? What's one courageous step that you can take this week in your work? What's one courageous step you can take in your relationships? Whenever I teach on this topic, I always open up with a story. I'm going to share the story with you guys. You may have heard it before. I'm going to share the story with you all this morning. But I always open up with this story. Back in 2000, it was 2005, I joined a brand new organization. I left the company. I was leading at the company at like a supervisory level. I had 4 people reporting into me. And I remember when I made the announcement that I was leaving, right? By the way, I left a leader. I didn't leave the organization. I left the leader, right? I felt undervalued by the leader. I felt unheard by the leader. I felt like all those things, right? So found another organization. By the way, I told a story a few weeks back about the power of reputation. How I got the other job was reputation. So the leader that hired me into that job had heard about me. 30 minutes in the interview, he's like, oh, you know what? I heard enough, right? Ended the interview, brought HR in, hired me. So now I go back. I'm leaving this company. And I can recall when the announcement came, had 4 people on my team. There were tears. Oh, my God, you're leaving. And what I didn't realize is that the tears weren't for me. Human beings don't like change. The tears were for change. But I took it as those tears were for me. That must mean I'm a phenomenal leader. But y'all gonna miss me? I ain't think some of y'all like me like that, right? Oh, y'all gonna miss? Oh, man, I must be nice with it, right? And so I went into this new organization really thinking highly of myself as a leader. I can recall I came in August 2005. October 2005, they had a leadership forum. And at this leadership forum, all the leaders from around the company at a certain level, they all come in, the CEO addresses all the leaders, the executive team addresses these leaders, and they did what they called a survey, like a culture and engagement survey on every leader. And the leaders that were the most effective, right? These are the leaders that got almost a perfect score on a 5-point scale. When I say almost a perfect score, you have to be at 4.96 in order to be recognized or above, okay? Which means pretty much perfect on a scale of effective leadership. And I'm sitting in the audience and they're celebrating these leaders. They're calling the names. These leaders are walking to the stage and they're celebrating them. And as I'm sitting in the audience, I'm thinking to myself, oh man, next year, I'm going to be on that stage. Next year is my year. Because I'm a great leader. I mean, when I left, people were crying and all. It's like, I'm a good leader. I'm a great leader. Next year, I'm going to be on that stage. So fast forward. The conference ends, the forum ends. And, you know, a year goes by. Year goes by quickly. It's 2006, October 2006. And all the leaders are back. And I've done my year of leadership. I've led my team. And if you ask me, outside of the data, I did a great job. I did a phenomenal job. Clearly, I lacked awareness. Okay, this is 20 years ago. So, anyway, I'm sitting in this this forum, and we get to the part of the leadership forum where they're calling leaders onto the stage. And I know for a fact I'm a phenomenal leader. I know I'm a great leader. My team should love me. My last team loved me. And so they should love me too. And they should show their love and how they filled out their survey for me, the engagement survey, the culture survey for me. And so they begin calling names. And you know how when you know you're about to get up, like if you know you're about to get up, you have to arrange yourself a particular way. And so when they got to the H's, so I think it was like, letter right before H. And I started because I'm a Harris, right? H-A. So I'm going to be one of the first people up in the H's. And so I took the journal off I had everything ready so I could get up. You know how you turn your legs a little bit in your seat, you scoop to the edge of your seat. And I'm like, yeah, it's my time. It's my time. And they start calling the names and the H's and they go, they like H-E, H-O. Oh, that's interesting. I'm like, are they doing it by region? Maybe they're doing it differently. Let me tell you something, man, about human beings. We can see very clearly that we're not included, and we will still make up stories for why we should be included. Like, in my mind, I was like, they must be doing it differently. I was so sure I was going to be on that stage, right? Anyway, they got to the Z's. They never called me. I'm like, that's interesting. I'm shocked, right? Okay. I got to see my results, man. My team is tripping because I know I'm a perfect leader. Because to be on the stage, you're pretty much, you're creme de la creme. But at that time of my life, I'm like, I'm creme de la creme. I get at the end of the forum, I jet out right there, get my envelope. I can barely wait. People coming up having small talk, and I'm like, yeah, okay, man, I need to look at these results. What's going on here? So finally, I make it to my car. I don't even pull out the parking lot. I just open my form. I look at it. It's multiple pages. And at the very top, my heart drops because I'm not a 4.9 nothing. I'm not even a 4.0. I'm not even a 3. At the top, it's a 2.95. My heart drops. Like, wait a second. I start to flip through the pages, looking for the lowest score. When I get to the lowest score, it's almost 0. And the lowest score is under respect. Now, one of the things that happens to us when we receive truth is shock. We go through Sarah, shock, anger. So I'm shocked first, right? Shock, anger, resistance. Y'all know Sarah, right? I'm shocked at first. What? Then I'm angry. Disrespect. I'm a brother. Like, I ain't disrespect nobody, man. I'm angry now. This is foolishness. I'm resistant to the results. The data's right in front of me. It's black and white. Right? I got multiple people on my team. They all saying the same thing. But I'm resistant to it. A few months go by, and my HR business partner, we all meet about the results with my team. We're in the meeting, and by the way, like respect was the worst, but there were other things that I was lacking in, accountability, you name it. It was just, you don't get a 2.9 doing well. So we're in the meeting. We're going through each of these different factors. And, I can remember, man, just, like heart beating, blood. It's like, man, this is, whew. And we get to respect. And I'm like, yeah, man, like I got almost a 0, right? I think it was like a 0.9 or something. And I said, okay, so the HR partner, her name was Kim. She's like, all right, can you all give Linal some feedback on respect. And, at first it's quiet in the room. And I'm like, yeah, because there ain't nothing to say, And then one of my superstars raises her hand. I thought she was my girl. Like, I thought we was, And she goes, yeah, I can give some feedback. She said, Linal, whenever we have a conversation, you got your BlackBerry in your hand. If it vibrates, you look down in the middle of me talking. I just feel unheard. I feel like, you're going through the motions. You don't really hear me, right? By the way, go back to the leadership framework. Put it back up real quick. When we created this leadership framework at Insights for Life, it wasn't because we guesstimated. This comes from not only personal experience, but it comes from data, right? Curious listening drives so many factors in your leadership. One of them it drives is respect. And I can remember getting the feedback. And when I got the feedback, you can take the frameworks down. When I got the feedback, I was resistant to it. Because I'm like, well, you got to understand something. I'm running the entire operation for this company. And so the reason I have to be attached to my phone is if something goes wrong with the operation, I'm responsible. So I had all these reasons. And what I started to realize is that I was making my perceived importance, my importance, over and beyond their need for respect, their need to be heard. My responsibility as a leader to curiously listen to what they were saying. After she went, another person went, and they started giving examples. Like, it wasn't just, they were giving me examples of how I had been disrespectful. And I remember, like, sitting there and taking in this feedback. And shortly after that, I began to realize that true respect requires that you have an intimate relationship with everyone that you lead. That you know what is respectful to them and what is not. That you're asking questions, and hopefully they're answering those questions truthfully. And I didn't have that with my team at the time. I was running the business, so I thought, but not doing it effectively. That was 2006. 2007, I did my work, went back to the forum. And once again, I wasn't on that stage. I believe the next year I was like a 3.5, right? 2008, I got promoted into a new role. And part of that promotion was because I just got my score and I was more like a 4.0, which was considered good. But I wasn't on the stage though, right? And for me, the vision was being on that stage. I didn't want to be a good leader. I wanted to be a great leader. I wanted to be an effective leader. And so 2009, I'm not on the stage. I'm a 4.3. I was like a 4.2, 4.3. 2010, I'm not on the stage, right? But I'm like a 4.7, 4.8. And now I'm asking questions like, hey, what makes you, what would make you feel that on the respect level, there's nothing in between us? Like, what? I'm asking different questions now, right? Because the vision is to get on the stage, but something shifted. I no longer wanted to be on the stage for me. I wanted to be on the stage for my team, because I began to realize that if I was what they call one of the dynamic leaders of this organization, one of the effective leaders of this organization, it meant that my service to my team was top notch. And if my service to my team was top notch, it meant that we were doing phenomenal work. And by the way, we had customer impact. 2011. At this point, it's been 6 years. I'm so used to not getting on the stage, I don't even prepare anymore. I'm just, I celebrate the leaders that are on the stage. And for me, by the way, one of the things I started doing is leaders that got on the stage, I started going to lunch with them. Yo, tell me what you do as a leader, right? I'm curious. Like, tell me more about how you lead in difficult situations with your team. And pretty much I was interviewing them. I'm like, I need to know everything about you, how you move, I wanted that mentorship. 2011, they start to announce the dynamic leaders, the effective leaders of the organization. And they're going through the alphabet. I don't even realize they're at H. And I hear my name, Linal Harris. And man, I'll never forget that day because it was something I had worked for 6 years. And who I thought I would be walking down that aisle was completely different. Because the man that walked down that aisle was humble. I was crying. I was moved. But more than anything, I was proud of who my team had become, more so than who I had become. Like the kind of team that I built, the kind of work that we were doing. And I was able to walk that stage for the rest of my career at the company before I left. Why am I telling that story? Because the thing that I had to learn how to develop that I didn't necessarily have access to back then was courage. The courage to tell my senior leader, if I received an important text, that the reason I didn't text them right back was because I was sitting with someone who was responsible for what they wanted to hear. And I was giving them my full attention. The courage to actually put my team first in situations where often other leaders would abandon their teams. The courage to make difficult decisions. The courage to push against the other leaders in the room and say, that's not good for our people. The courage to be the voice all by itself that's saying, I'm not sure that's going to work, you guys. The courage to say, hey, that will poorly impact our folks. Are we sure we want to do that? The courage when it didn't feel, hey, we're gonna take the budget and cancel this team outing. Like the courage to say that's not the right thing to do. That's not the best way to spend the money. While all my peers looked at me crazy. Courage. One of the things that is lacking, and you can see it in the business results across corporate America. You can see it in the business results all across different companies. You can see it in the business results of many of the companies in our community. It's true leadership courage. Doing what is necessary, despite what you believe the consequences may be. Making decisions in alignment with your guiding principles and core values. Not in alignment with what's popular. Right now, there's things that are popular that are outside of most of what we believe. Right now, most leaders in my positions, consultants, they're not going to sit and talk about the importance of diversity and how it correlates to the numbers. They're not going to talk about how difficult it is to be inclusive, but you must. But that's the conversation that's necessary right now. We need more courageous leaders. We need more courageous CEOs. We need more courageous C-suite leaders. We need more courageous executives that are saying, hey, we're going to let this administration drown our business. Courage. Clarity plus courage equals leadership legacy. There'll come a time where people don't remember the intricacies of this administration, but they will remember how you made them feel. And see, brands are going to have to live through that. Y'all follow? They'll remember that you didn't stand. They'll remember that when some pressure came, you folded. When you got afraid, you bent. They'll remember that. They'll remember that. I want to go back to the research I started today with. Effective leaders drive market share. They drive revenue. Effective leaders drive profitability. Effective leaders drive share prices. And organizations led by great leaders outperform those with mediocre or poor leaders in measurable financial outcomes. I firmly believe that what's going on for us right now is a leadership crisis. We're in a position now where to say the right thing is not necessarily popular. To do the right thing doesn't feel like it's going to be backed by financial gain. And then it comes down to what type of leader are you? Are you going to lead through this time of uncertainty in alignment with your guiding principles? Are you going to be a courageous leader? Courage is more exhilarating than fear. And in the long run, it is easier. We do not have to become heroes overnight. Just a step at a time, meeting each thing that comes up. The challenge, being human. The answer, being committed. Being committed to something bigger than myself. Being committed to purpose. How do I do that? I practice self-awareness. Self-awareness expands my behavioral consciousness and gives me access to new choices. I increase my cultural competence. I get curious about myself. I get curious about my community. I get curious about the people I work with. I create safe spaces for the people who work with me, for my team members. I set the stage for open dialogue. You know, if you can't have open dialogue, like, you take a marriage. On a scale of 1 to 10, here's a good question to ask your spouse. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, you feel like you can't talk to me at all about something without me being defensive. 10 being, I'm very open. Where would you put me? Where would you put me? And then when they give you the number, notice what you do. What? Yeah? Or you're like, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Maybe you need to take a breath, walk away, come back and say, I'm ready to listen now. Leadership is all over the place. It's in marriage, it's in business. But do you set the stage for open dialogue? Hey, what can I do better? Are you proactively building relationships with your team members? We live in a society now where if I'm the leader, then it's like, you need to, you come to me. If you don't come to me, I don't even know who your children are. I don't even, he's never set a meeting up with me, so and it's like, no. Leadership is service. You serve the people you lead. Who are you? What makes you tick? Who's your wife? Who are your children? Do you have a dog? Where do you live? How can I serve you? Let me dive a little deeper into curious listening, because this is when you're a curious listener, the people around you feel valued and heard. When you're a curious listener, everybody's engaged. When you're a curious listener, there are low levels of attrition. People don't just walk away. Some folks say, well, Linal, I don't pay that much. That's why. Nah, I'm telling you, people just don't walk away. They will talk to you first. And then, here's the beautiful thing. when you're a curious listener, you're actually teaching the people you lead how to listen. Because most of us are imitators. Well, I saw my leader do it, so I'm going to do it. How are you? How you doing today? Same things, right? If I were to start promoting people in my organization and putting people underneath them, how they function is really a reflection of my leadership. If they're not listening to folks, cutting folks off, now you got some outliers out there, right? But if they, like, I got to ask myself, do I do that? Because they might actually be like, well, this is what leadership looks like, right? Team members who practice curious listening enhance the company's culture. And get this, they also enhance the customer experience. You know how they say it rolls downhill? So do the good things. Now you have people working with the customer who are willing to listen. The CEO listens, everybody in between listens, and guess what? They'll listen to the customer. What happened again? Man, I'm really sorry that happened. How'd that impact you? No, that's not cool. I tell you what, we are empowered to do something about that because we got great leaders here. I'm going to refund you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You want to know something interesting about the data? This is for my entrepreneurs out there. I want you to hear this. Something very interesting about the data. Do you know that if someone has a very bad interaction with your company and it's resolved well, that they become a more loyal customer than someone who never had a bad interaction? This is the data. I'm not making this up. Like, now, I always tell you, don't believe me, go do the research. But go do the research. Listen to me again. Did you know that if someone has a bad interaction with your company and you and your team go over and beyond to resolve it, you now have a more loyal customer than someone who's never had a problem at all? This is how effective leadership works. So things are going to go wrong, but are you and your team prepared to handle it? And if you are, now you got people who will go out there and talk about you. Hey, man, I did work with Insights for Life. It went sideways at first, but then they came in, they fixed it. We had a phenomenal, like the result was phenomenal. You should do work with them too. Not only are they good, but they know how to fix problems when you have them. They know how to communicate. They know how to listen. Increase cultural competence through your curious listening. What is cultural competence? The ability to interact with different people. The United States is more diverse than it's ever been. It's getting more diverse. You're an entrepreneur, you don't know how to interact with different cultures, then you now have a homogenous market. I don't want a homogenous market. We serve everybody, right? Because why? Because we want everybody's money. This is one of the reasons I always be like, hey, man, you know, oh, this is for black women. This is for, I'd be like, okay, you could do that, but you should. I mean, your market share is going to be, I mean, and don't get me wrong, 1.7 trillion is a lot. But I'd rather add up everybody's GDP. I'm just saying. Increased cultural competence through curious listening allows a leader to maximize the talents of the entire team. So I'm going to go back to this to end. What is your leadership commitment? What is your leadership commitment? Your leadership commitment serves as an anchor for the leader you intend to be. This is your anchor. Commitment begets consistency. When you are consistent, your team feels safe. Leadership commitment and active self-awareness activate a leader's agility. Now I can make moves. I hear things. I'm compensating the way I should. And then get this. Commitment, listen to me, is the only access point for all worthy achievements. any achievement that is notable came through the access point of commitment. Thank you for watching Inspirational Perspective. If you love this show and you want to see more content like this, you can go right here. And if you like this subject and you want to see much more content that we have available for you, just click the button here. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to watch the show live, 7 a.m. every Sunday morning on WVON Radio, or you can catch it right here on YouTube or Facebook.com/Coach Linal Harris. Be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so we can get more content just like this to you.